Good morning, dear students. Today we are going to discuss on the chapter Breathing and Exchange of Gases, Part 2. So, in this today's session, we are going to deal on the main concept, that is mechanism of breathing and respiratory volumes and capacity. Along with that, we are going to study about exchange of gases. These three main concepts we are going to study in this session. Okay. So first let us know about the mechanism of breathing. So what is breathing here? Breathing is defined as a exchange of gaseous materials between the lungs and the surrounding environment. Okay. So the breathing involves the two steps, namely. Okay. So let us first know about the mechanism of breathing. So what happens when we breathe? Okay. So as we know that the breathing is a physical process, and so there is no any type of the chemical process is involvement is taking place in the breathing. So here this is the process of this process is taking in the air and giving out the air. Okay, in taking the air and giving out the air. So let us see now how the breathing process takes place and the steps which are involving in the breathing process. Okay, the first one is the inspiration process, second one is expiration process. So here the inspiration process is also known as a inhalation. So expiration is also known as a exhalation. Okay, inhalation is nothing but intake the air. Okay, the taking air inside. Okay, that is good air which is rich in oxygen. So another one is a exhalation. Exhalation is nothing but giving out air. Okay, which is releasing of bad air or the fuel air. Fuel air is nothing but the bad air which is going to release out, so which is rich in the carbon dioxide. So here the inspiration is an active process which involving intaking of the air, and expiration is a passive process involving the exhalation of the air, that is giving out of the air. Okay, so first we'll talk about inhalation process, which is taking the air inside, which is rich in oxygen. Okay, so in this picture you can see that how the inhalation process is taking place. So let us discuss about this. So during this inhalation, what happens, we are going to take in the air, so we need more space inside to the lungs to accommodate the air and which we take in. So what happens here, the diaphragm, when the air is intaken, so at that time the internal intercostal muscles were going to relaxed, were already relaxed in the position. So here what happens, after intaking of the air, the diaphragm muscles will get contract, starts to contract. As a result, dome shaped diaphragm. Okay, so this is the diaphragm here, which is dome shaped diaphragm is diaphragm is become flat and increase the chest cavity. Okay, so this will become flat and the chest cavity is going to increase. Okay, so and the cavity is going to increase and the diaphragm is pulled down and the lungs become expand. So because the lungs get lot of space inside, that's why the lungs get expand. So now what happens here, when the lungs expand, the muscles contracts the diaphragm which is pulled down. As a result, the thoracic cavity expands, that is increased. When the lungs expands, what happens here, their volume increases, and we know that the pressure into volume is constant form. When the volume increases, the pressure would decreases. Okay, the pressure is inversely proportional to the volume. Okay, so here it is, and when the lungs expand, the volume inside which is going to increased and the pressure would inside the lungs going to decrease. Okay, so now what happens? The air pressure outside in the atmosphere is more than the air pressure inside the lungs. So the pressure gradient is created here. So the air pressure moves from higher level to the lower level, from atmosphere to the inside the lungs. Okay, so this is how the inhalation process is taking place. You can see here the rib cage, which is expanded completely. It is expanded. The rib muscles are getting contract. So these are the ribs. Okay, and this is diaphragm. These two are the pair of lungs. Here the lungs. Okay, and inhaled, the air is inhaled. Okay, so in the inhalation process, what happens? We already discussed that the diaphragm get contracts and moves down, that is pulled down. Okay, so here the intercostal muscles get already relaxed in position, and external intercostal muscles will get contract. Okay, so these muscles will get contract, and rib cage, this is the complete rib cage, and this rib cage is moves upward and outward. Okay, upward and upward, along with that outwards. Okay, diaphragm contract and flattens. Okay, this diaphragm will contracts and it become flattens, and the volume of thoracic cavity will increases, and the pressure in the alveoli is present inside the lungs. Okay, so that alveoli is going to, the pressure inside that alveoli is going to decrease, so the air moves in. Okay, like this the inhalation process is taking place. So the next concept is exhalation, that is also known as the expiration process. Okay, so it is just quite opposite of this process of inhalation. Okay, so this is the passive process and involving the exhalation of the air. Okay, giving out of the air, which takes place because of the relaxation of phrenic muscles. Okay, the relaxation of the phrenic muscles which are present here, the phrenic muscles, and those are getting, so relaxation of that phrenic muscles and external intercostal muscles. Okay, these are the external intercostal muscles, and those are getting relaxation. So when we give out the air, which is CO2. Okay, so just the opposite reaction of inhalation. In the inhalation we are taking the air inside, that is oxygen. So here in this process what we are going to do, that is giving out the air, which is carbon dioxide, just the opposite reaction of the inhalation. Okay, so here the expansion of diaphragm muscles expands. Okay, so diaphragm get expands and pulled up. Okay, so it will pulled up, and what happens here, these are getting relaxed in the stage, pulled up, and the volume of thoracic cavity will decreases, so it will contract, and will what will happen here to the lungs, will not get the long space here, the inside the lungs there is no any long space will be going to available, so the volume will also get decreased. That is, when the volume decreases, the air pressure will, obviously it is increased. Okay, so the air pressure inside the lungs is greater than the air pressure in the outside of the atmosphere. Okay, so the movement of air will take place a higher pressure area to the lower pressure area, that is the movement of air takes place from the lungs to atmosphere, so just the opposite way. So this is how the movement of air takes place. Due to this process, phrenic muscles of diaphragm get relaxed. So these are the phrenic diaphragm muscles which are connected with these ribs, and these, that phrenic muscle is going to connected with these, and those are in the relaxed condition. Okay, so bringing back the ribs and chest bone to the original, so those will help in the bringing back the uh, ribs and along with the chest bone to the ribs. So this is the backbone, bringing back the the ribs and along with that there is a chest bone. So this chest bone is going to come into an original position. So thus it is decreasing the volume of chest cavity. So as a result, both the lungs get pressed and the air is expelled out. Okay. So here in the exhalation, what happens? Once again, we'll revise that. This internal costal muscles get contract. And what internal costal muscles are? These are the internal costal muscles where you will see. Okay. So and external intercostal muscles are relaxed in the position, and the ribs cage moves downwards and inwards. Okay, rib cage is going to move downwards and inwards form, and the diaphragm is going to relaxed in the form, and the volume of thoracic cavity is going to decrease. Okay, so here the volume of the thoracic cavity is going to decrease, and the pressure in alveoli is going to increase. Okay, so like this the air moves out. So this is all about the expiration process, that is exhalation process. Okay, so the next concept will move on. This is the mechanism. So how the expiration and inspiration or inhalation and exhalation process is taking place. So here you can see that just now we discussed these are the rib cage expanding position, and the air is intaken, which is that air with the air is intaken from the atmosphere, that is the oxygen. Okay, so how the ribs are getting expanding in the position, and along with that how the as a result the thoracic contract, the diaphragm is going to pull it down. As a result, the thoracic cavity expanding, that is increasing, the diaphragm is going to increasing and pull it down. And also when the lungs are going to expand, what changes will be occurs here? The volume increases inside. So we know that the pressure into volume is a constant. Okay, when the volume increases, the pressure would be decreases. So pressure inversely proportional to the volume in this process. So the like this the process is taking place in the inspiration. So same as in the expiration also, the rib cage gets smaller. So these are the rib cage which are getting smaller, and this is the diaphragm, and inside there are the two lungs. Okay, pair of lungs. Okay, and here what happens, the movement of air will takes place from higher pressure area to the lower pressure area, and that is the movement of air takes place from the lungs to atmosphere to so just the opposite way. Okay, so how the movement of air takes place here, due to how the so this is how the movement of air takes place. Okay, why and what is the main reason here, what all the changes we are going to observe here. So in this what happens, the intercostal muscle get relaxed and bringing back that ribs and chest bones into an original position. Thus it is the decreasing, because there is a decreasing the volume of the chest cavity, and as a result the both lungs get pressed and air is going to expel out. Okay, so like this the process, the mechanism of breathing process is taking place. So let us move on to the next concept, that is the following terms describe various lung volumes and capacity. Okay, so the various lung volume and capacity. So here we'll talk some related term respiratory volumes and capacities. So before going to detailed study of respiratory volume and capacities, let us know the meaning of volume and capacities. So what is the volume here? The amount of anything you can take. Okay, the volume of anything, it may be any things like water, it may be, or milk, or any of the liquid forms, so etc. So okay, you take inside the glass or any container, that is the amount of water or milk or anything which is present in the glass. Okay, so we are taking here the liquid, any type of the liquid in the glass or any container. Okay, so now the capacity of glass is to hold the maximum capacity of that glass is to hold the half liter or 1 liter or more than that of the things. Okay, that means that is the maximum value of the liquid, okay, that the glass or container hold. The capacity always means the maximum liquid or anything which can hold. Okay, so that is how the volume and capacity differs. And hope so you have understood this concept, main concept. Okay, so what is the volume here? The amount of anything, that is, it may be a water, milk, or any liquid forms which is taken in the glass or any of the container. Okay, that container is having capacity to hold that liquid at least half, one, or more than that. So it means that the maximum value of that liquid that the glass or container is going to hold. So that is, the capacity is always means that the maximum liquid or anything which can hold. So this is how the volume and capacity differs. Okay, so now we'll come for the main concept, that is the respiratory volume. So in respiratory volume we learn some terms here. So that is respiratory volume, that is the tidal volume. And what is the tidal volume here? Tidal volume is denoted by TV. Okay, so volume of air inspired or expired. Inspired is nothing but intaking. Okay, expired is nothing but outgoing. Okay, so the air is expelled out, so that is expired during normal effortless breathing. So it is about 500 ml. Okay, the total volume of air inspired and expired by normal respiration. When we are going with a normal respiration process, the total volume of air is intaken and also expelled out. Here we are not forcing that air to intake or put out. Okay, so it is effortless type of a breathing. So normally in this in the adults, healthy human beings, this tidal volume is around 6000 to 8000 ml, that is the milliliter per minute. Okay, so this is how the tidal volume is there. So the next one is the inspiratory reserve volume. So inspiratory reserve volume is the volume of air expired forcefully. Okay, inspiratory. Additional volume of air is inspired by forceful respiration. Okay, forceful respiration and trying to take forcefully more. Okay, that is additional air than the normal is denoted by IRV. Okay, the additional volume of air is inspired, inspiratory reserved volume. Okay, volume of air forcefully over the above the tidal, and that is here we are taking the inspired by the additional volume of the air is inspired forcefully, okay, into the respiration and trying to take forcefully the more, that is additional air. Okay, and then the normal air, so it is denoted with the IRV, that is inspiratory reserve volume. So let us go with the next one, that is the expiratory reserve volume. So here the additional of air the person can expire by forcible expiration. Here the additional volume of air is expired forcefully or compared to the normal. Okay, the what happens here, the additional volume of air is intaken. So air is expired, that is uh, giving out. Okay, so the put out of this air is forcefully, okay, as compared to the normal respiration. Okay, so it is denoted by ERV, that is expiratory reserve volume, and this averages into 1000 ml to the 1100 ml. Okay, so the next one is the residual volume, that is denoted by RV, the volume of air remaining in the lungs even after the forcible expiration. So this is average from the 1100 ml to 1200 ml. Okay, so this is residual. So let us first know that term, what is the residual here. Okay, residual is nothing but it is left over. Okay, that is the volume of over left in after the forcible expiration. Got that? So it has been seen that even a forceful expiration, after the trying of giving out of air as possible, even though some amount of air is still left in our lungs, okay, that leftover air is known as a residual, okay, volume, and it is denoted by RV. Got that? So the next concept will move to capacities, okay, respiratory capacities. Till now we have studied about the respiratory volumes. Now we'll start with the respiratory capacities. So inspiratory capacity. So let us suppose the person already has a normal expiration, that is already breathed out normally. Even after that, the person has ability to breathe out some extra also, that is inspiratory capacity is equal to inspiratory reserve volume, that is additional air which the person can take in by forceful inspiration, okay, that is the tidal volume plus inspiratory reserve volume, the total volume of air the person can inspire after the normal expiration. This includes the tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume, okay, that is known as a inspiratory capacity. Okay, the next one is the expiratory capacity. Here expiratory capacity, the total volume of air a person can expire after a normal inspiration. Okay, so here the person can expire after the normal inspiration. So what happens here? If you want to calculate how much the capacity and how much the maximum can you expire, that means under the normal condition, tidal volume plus now if you force by more and more, then you can expire some additional volume of air also. So and that additional volume is ERV. Okay, that is known as expiratory reserve volume. Okay, expiratory ERV, that is the expiratory reserve volume, and this expiratory reserve volume is going to join with the tidal volume here. So the tidal volume plus ERV, that is the expiratory capacity, ERV is the expiratory reserve volume, then it is going to function as expiratory capacity. Okay, so here the total volume of air a person can expire after a normal inspiration. This includes tidal volume and expiratory reserve volume. Got that? So the next concept is functional residual capacity. Functional residual capacity is nothing but the volume of air that will remain in the lungs. As we already know, the term residual is nothing but, so if we have been seen that the forceful after the forceful expiration or inspiration, there is left over some amount of the air inside our lungs. So still some amount of the air is left inside the lungs, so that is known as a residual here, and the volume of that air will remain in the lungs and after the normal expiration also. Okay, so this includes expiratory reserve volume plus reserve residual volume. Okay, so here this is about the functional residual capacity, and the next concept is vital capacity is denoted by VC, the maximum volume of air a person can breathe. Okay, and in after a forced expiration, what happens? This includes some expiratory reserve volume and also some tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume, or some maximum volume of air a person can breathe out after forced inspiration also. Okay, maximum volume of air the person can breathe in after the forced expiration, that is vital capacity. Okay, so vital capacity is equal to, here what happens, tidal volume plus expiratory reserve volume, and inspiratory reserve volume. So the next one is the total lung capacity. So what is total lung capacity here? The total volume of air accommodated in the lungs. Okay, the maximum amount of the air is accommodated in the lungs at the end of a forced inspiration. Okay, end of the forced inspiration. This includes some residual volume, expiratory reserve volume, and tidal volume, and also inspiratory reserve volume or vital capacity plus residual volume. Like this, the total lung capacity is taking place. The volume of air is accommodated in the lungs at the end of the forced inspiration. It is known as total lung capacity. Got that? So the next concept will, hope so you have understood these capacities and volumes, and this concept is very important in exam. They may ask for 3 marks, 2 marks or 1 mark. So you go through these definitions. Okay. So the next concept is exchange of gases. So what is the exchange of gases here? How it is taking place? Let us discuss now. So exchange of gases takes place into the two levels. Okay. So first we'll know what is the here the primary site of exchange of gases. Here the primary site of exchange of gases taking place in alveoli. Okay, where the exchange of gases also occurs between the blood and tissues. Okay, and O2 and CO2 are here the gases which are going to exchanged. Okay, in these sites by simple diffusion, mainly based on the pressure and concentration gradient. Okay, here the pressure and concentration gradients are playing major role in the diffusion function. Okay, and these exchange of gases are primarily taking place in the main site, that is alveoli. Okay, and some important factors that can affect the rate of diffusion. So one is the solubility of gases and thickness of membrane. Okay, so let us study first the exchange of gases, and which exchange of gases are going to classify in which all reasons. Okay, so here it is taking place into two levels. So we classify it as a pulmonary gaseous exchange, that is external respiratory. Pulmonary gaseous exchange is also known as the external respiratory, okay, respiration, and which is between the air and blood or alveoli and the blood vessels. The second one is going to tissue level, or it is also known as a internal respiration, is going to form in the tissue level. The second one is going to form in the tissue level, where it is also known as a internal respiration or internal gaseous exchange. Okay, so before we take up the exchange of gases, we need to understand the term partial pressure and partial pressure, and partial pressure is expressed by P. Okay, and here, and it is defined as a pressure exerted. Okay, it is defined as a pressure exerted by a gas in a mixture of gases, irrespective or the concentration of other gases. Okay, so here it is a partial pressure. So every gas in the mixture in air, it is going to have some partial pressure. Got that? So every gases which is present in a mixture in the air, so every gas is having its own partial pressure. Now let us know the partial pressure of air which we breathe in, and then partial pressure of air or the gas in the alveoli. Okay, so here the pressure contributed by individual gas in the mixture of gases is called partial pressure, as we just now we have studied, and it is represented as P, that is a partial pressure, and O2 is the oxygen, partial pressure of oxygen and partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Okay, so, and the next, the partial pressure of inhaling air is 159 millimeter of mercury and of partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 0.3 millimeter of mercury. Okay, so this is how the partial pressure of inhaled air, which is intaken oxygen, is under the range of 159 millimeter of mercury, and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is under the range of 0.3 millimeter of mercury. Okay, the air when it comes into uh, the alveoli. Okay, so this is the alveoli region. You can see here, this is the alveoli part. Okay, so what happens here at the outside range? It is in the range of partial pressure of oxygen is 159 millimeter per of mercury, and PO2, that is PCO2, that is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide, is 0.3 mm of mercury. Okay, the air when it comes into the alveoli, okay, that is inspiration, okay, is alveoli, and we call it alveolar air. So when the air is intaken inside the alveoli, so this is the alveoli region. When air is intaken, that air after coming inside the alveoli, that air is known as a alveolar air. Okay, why these two are going to be a different in reasons is, out of 500 milliliter of air we inhaled during the normal breathing, as we already know that, okay, which is known as a tidal volume. In tidal volume, what we have studied already, we are taking inhaling the normal, while the normal breathing we are taking the 500 milliliter of the air from inhaling process. Okay, it comes in the tidal volume. It is only the 350 milliliter is going to reach up to the alveoli. Got that? In the 500 milliliter of the air, the only 350 milliliter of air is going to reach into the alveolar part. Okay, and some air, it remains in the respiratory tract only. So what happens here? Whatever the remaining air is there, that is going to remain in the respiratory tract only. Okay, after exhaling again, exhaling is nothing but the air is putting out. So after exhaling again, some gases or the air is remaining in this tube, and the gaseous exchange is taking place. Okay, that means here the gaseous exchange is taking place when it is expired out. So and that means when the fresh air is entered into the alveoli, it mixes with the air, and the fresh air is entered into the uh, it mixes with the air, and then which is already present in our respiratory tract. Got that? When we are taking the respiration from the normal respiration, that time we are having 500 milliliter of the inhaling during the normal breathing, which is known as a tidal volume, and 350 milliliter is going to reach up to the alveoli, and remaining what the some amount of air is there, that is going to settle or remains in the respiratory tract only. So after exhaling again, some gases or the air is remains in that only, and that tube only, and the gaseous exchange is taking place. Okay, that means when the fresh air is entered into alveoli, it mixes with the air which is already present in our respiratory tract. Okay, that gas or the air has more number of carbon dioxide, because exchange is taking place continuously, and less oxygen is going to form. Okay, so here the less oxygen is going to form, and the exchange of the gases is taking place continuously. So here the less amount of oxygen will be formed, and more amount of carbon dioxide will be taking place. Okay, that is why the partial pressure changes from the partial pressure is going to change into partial pressure of oxygen 104 mm Hg, that is millimeter of mercury. Okay, and The next one is partial pressure of carbon dioxide is going to range to 40 mmHg, okay, inside the alveoli. Okay, so this process is taking from external to internal of the alveoli. Okay, so that the last, the 104 millimeter of mercury is going to form in partial pressure of oxygen is going to form when at the beginning the air is entered into partial pressure of oxygen is 159 mm of Hg, but when it mixes with the less oxygen containing in the air in the respiratory tract, which is remained in the respiratory tract, so what happens at that time? Now the overall partial pressure of oxygen will be 104 millimeter of mercury. Okay, similarly in the partial pressure of carbon dioxide also, the air which we inhaled or putting out at initial has a less amount of carbon dioxide, that is 0.3 mm per Hg, but here what happens, this gas mixes with that gas which is already remaining and in our respiratory tract and which is having a more carbon dioxide. Here the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is comes into a 40 millimeter of mercury. So that's why the two values we have understood here. Okay, that partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Okay, and what is the inhaled air is different as compared to the partial pressure of carbon dioxide and oxygen in the alveoli air. That remains when we are taking in the air, and it is more of oxygen and the less amount of carbon dioxide. When it comes to the alveoli, this air mixes with the already there in the respiratory tract. Okay, that's why the range is going to get changed. This air which is present in the respiratory tract is having less amount of the oxygen and more amount of the carbon dioxide. That's why the partial pressure of oxygen is 104 millimeter of mercury, and partial pressure of carbon dioxide is increased into a 40 from 0.3 mm to 40 millimeter of mercury is going to increase in the alveoli part. Okay, so here what happens, um, as the solubility of carbon dioxide is 20 to 25 points higher than that of the oxygen. Okay, the amount of carbon dioxide that can diffuse through the diffusion membrane as per unit difference in the partial pressure is much higher compared to that of oxygen. Okay, so here to understand this exchange, we'll go through this diagram first. Just now we discussed how the air is entering inside the alveoli and how the changes are getting are observed. Okay, so which here through this diagram we can understand easily, which we can easily understand the various places where the exchange of gases were taking place. The part is going to represent, so this part is going to represent, this is representing as a alveoli, we already said that. And here the alveoli, here we'll talk about the respiratory gases changes and the tissue level. Here the respiratory gases are taking exchanging, and this is the tissue part where the process is also occurring. The tissue level we are telling this is the alveolar level and this is the tissue level. Okay, and this the circulation, and here the blood is going through the chambers of heart. So this is the circulation part where the blood is going to, this is the heart region where the circulation is going to takes place, and through which the blood is circulating into the chambers of the heart. So we already seen the alveolar air in the partial pressure of oxygen, that is 104 mm Hg, and partial pressure of carbon dioxide that is 40 mm Hg in the alveoli. Okay, and and in the blood which comes to the lungs. Okay, and the blood which comes to the lungs, and that is deoxygenated. Okay, and this deoxygenated blood is brought by pulmonary artery. So this is deoxygenated blood. You can see here, this is deoxygenated blood, and it is brought by a pulmonary artery. Deoxygenated is impure blood which is brought by the lungs, and that is the blue color symbol you can see here. This is completely the deoxygenated blood which is brought by the pulmonary artery. Okay, and this deoxygenated is also having some amount of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Got that? So this inside these impure blood, that is deoxygenated blood, is also having some amount of carbon dioxide and oxygen, and that the oxygen also having some partial pressure of oxygen and some partial pressure of carbon dioxide. As it is deoxygenated, that means it is coming from tissue level. Most of oxygen is used up. Okay, but in some oxygen always remains. So this is the partial pressure of oxygen, that is 40 mmHg, and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide will be, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide will be 45 to 46 type of mmHg range. Okay, which is carrying the deoxygenated blood through the systemic vein. So this is the systemic vein through which the deoxygenated blood is going to carry out. Okay, and this is the pulmonary artery where from the lungs the impure blood is going to circulate. Okay, and same the coming from tissue level, and most of oxygen used is used up, and but some oxygen is always remains inside, and the deoxygenated blood and the blood which is comes from the tissue has a more carbon dioxide which have diffuses from the tissue. Okay, here you can see the more amount of the carbon dioxide which is diffused from the tissue level. So this is the tissue level. Okay, and somewhere around the number will be ranges from 45 mmHg or 46. Okay, so here it is about the and the next what happens here. Now there are the two areas, that is the alveoli and blood alveoli. There are the two regions, that is the alveoli and blood. The alveoli has a oxygen at the higher partial pressure, and and gases diffuses from their higher partial pressure to their lower partial pressure. Now because of oxygen diffusion in the partial pressure of oxygen is going to change. Okay, so here we'll see that how the changes are getting occurring here. So here the partial pressure of oxygen is going to change, same as in the partial pressure of oxygen is increased, and because and becomes 95 to 96 millimeter of mercury. Okay, so here you can see the 95, it after the tissue level of the exchange, level of the gaseous exchange, you can see here the impure blood is going to circulated from the systemic veins and carrying the deoxygenated blood, and it is slowly going to exchange. The diffusion is taking place from the tissue level here. This is the tissue level where the exchange, the diffusion is taking place here, and uh, and here what happens, the 95 to 96 millimeter of mercury, we call this blood as a oxygenated. So this is the oxygenated. Here the blue color symbol blood is circulation is known as a deoxygenated, but the red color of this symbol is known as a oxygenated. And what has happens in is in alveoli, the air which is present as a partial pressure of oxygen is 104 mm, and millimeter of mercury, and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 40 millimeter of mercury. When the blood comes to the alveoli, is deoxygenated, okay, from alveoli it is deoxygenated, that is from the lungs, okay, and it is brought by the pulmonary artery. And again, deoxygenated blood has a low partial pressure of oxygen and high partial pressure of the carbon dioxide. Here you can see, okay, and high partial pressure of the carbon dioxide. Uh, when the blood comes to the alveoli, so the deoxygenated blood is brought by the pulmonary artery, and that deoxygenated blood having some amount of partial pressure in the oxygen and carbon dioxide also, okay. So what happens here, the deoxygenated blood has a partial pressure of oxygen and that high partial pressure of carbon dioxide, and also the oxygen is going to diffuse from alveoli, okay, the oxygen is going to diffuse from alveoli, and that is the higher partial pressure of oxygen is getting low, the high partial pressure of oxygen to the low partial pressure of oxygen, okay, and the partial pressure of oxygen in the blood is going to increase. So like this, the exchange of the oxygen, partial pressure of oxygen from alveoli to the blood, how it is taking place. So let us also know about carbon dioxide, how it is taking place. The blood which is coming here, that is partial pressure of carbon dioxide, is 45 mm Hg. So this is carbon dioxide, 45 millimeter of mercury, okay, whereas the air in the alveoli, the partial pressure is 40 mm, that is Hg. Again the carbon dioxide is going to diffuse at a higher partial pressure to its lower partial pressure, okay, and that is from blood to alveoli, and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is going to get decrease around 40 to 42 approximately, okay. Here you can see the 40 to 40, maximum 40 mm of the Hg is going to get, okay, and the value, and and this is the oxygenated blood, where from the oxygenated blood from the lungs brought to the heart by pulmonary veins. So here you will see that the amount of oxygen is getting more, that is 95 mm Hg, and carbon dioxide is less amount, so is nothing but the blood is in the oxygenated form, so which is going to carry by the systemic arteries, okay, and here it is carrying out the, and at this side if you see the deoxygenated blood level, the carbon dioxide is very less as compared to carbon dioxide, the oxygen is very less as compared to carbon dioxide. So here we'll see that the deoxygenated blood. So from which reason the oxygenated blood is going to take place, is going to circulate the heart, from the heart the pulmonary veins, and the pulmonary veins are going to open in the heart, okay. So here we'll see that the pulmonary veins through which the blood is going to circulate, and it is that pulmonary heart veins are going to open in the heart region. So this is the pulmonary vein which is going to open in the heart. So here it is the four chambered heart, okay, and opens in the heart on the left hand side, okay. So this is the left auricle, the oxygenated blood comes to the left ventricle. So here from the left auricle to the left ventricle, this is the auricle and this is ventricle, the left auricle to the left ventricle, how the oxygenated blood is going to circulate, and from here the oxygenated blood will be carried through the aorta, okay, to various organs. So from this reason the blood is going to carry into the different parts to the various organs through the aorta. So here the partial pressure of oxygen will be 95, that is more, 95 mm Hg, and carbon dioxide is 40 mm Hg. Got that? So this is why the oxygenated blood is here, because the number of the carbon dioxide is very less and the oxygen is very high, okay. And this amount of blood is going to, it comes to the tissues, and here it is the tissue where the tissue level of exchange diffusion is taking place. This blood is going to come into the tissue. Okay, and here the active, if the tissues are active and the continuously using the oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide, so this level of partial pressure of oxygen is very less, because they have used up all the oxygen, and depending upon the activity of that tissue, the partial pressure of oxygen get varies. Okay, and here the tissue where the exchange of the gases were taking place, where you can see here the carbon dioxide is released in and oxygen is coming out. Like this the exchange of the gases were taking place. So it is depends on the activation of the tissue, the activation of the tissue, um, the partial pressure of oxygen will get varies. Okay, again the blood is here, the partial pressure is 95 and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 40 mm Hg and gases, and they diffuses their higher partial pressure to their lower partial pressure. Okay, oxygen of the partial pressure of oxygen is more as compared to the tissue level. Okay, so oxygen is going to diffuse into the tissue, and in the tissue carbon dioxide is more. Got that? Here the oxygen is going to, partial pressure of oxygen is more as compared to the tissue level. This is the tissue level. As compared to this tissue level, the carbon dioxide is more. Okay, partial pressure is more, so oxygen is going to diffuse inside the tissue and from the tissue to the blood. Okay, from tissue to the blood, and what happens, this is tissue and the carbon dioxide is more. So inside the tissue the carbon dioxide is more and the oxygen level will be very less. So what happens here, the carbon dioxide is going to diffuse from the tissue to the blood. So carbon dioxide is going to diffuse from tissue to the blood, and this is again the gaseous exchange is taking place, and this level is known as a tissue level of exchange of gases. Okay, and when the gaseous exchange takes place, partial pressure of oxygen is again reduced to the partial pressure of oxygen level of 40 mm Hg. Okay, from tissue the carbon dioxide diffuses into the blood, so partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 46 or 45 to 46 level of the mm Hg. Okay, so this blood becomes deoxygenated blood. Okay, we already discussed that this portion is completely the oxygenated blood. Why? Because here the oxygen level is more, that is partial pressure of oxygen is 95 mm Hg and the carbon dioxide is very less, that is 40 mm Hg. So but as we come to the next, after the exchange of gases in the tissue level, you can see here the carbon dioxide level will be increased and the oxygen level will be decreased. Okay, so here the blood becomes deoxygenated blood, and this deoxygenated blood is brought to the heart by the superior and inferior vena cava, okay, which are situated in the heart. Okay, and deoxygenated blood is comes to right ventricle, and from right ventricle and comes to the right ventricle, and from right ventricle it will taken by this pulmonary artery. Okay, it will taken by the pulmonary artery. These are the right ventricle, and this is right auricle and the ventricle regions, and these are going to taken by the pulmonary artery to the lungs. Okay, this is alveoli which is present in the lungs. It is taken to the lungs, and this deoxygenated blood is having a less amount of oxygen and more amount of carbon dioxide is coming to the lungs. Again the fresh alveoli air, again it would have become a deoxygenated in the oxygenated and transported to tissue level, again coming back to the lungs. Okay, so like this the exchange of the gases were taking place. So those are taking place into the two levels. We already discussed that. The first one is lung level, that is pulmonary exchange or external level also we are calling it. So the next one is the tissue level, that is the internal respiration level, and this is how the respiratory gases moves into two places. Okay, exchange is taking place. So hope so you have understood the main concept. Okay, so let us go with the next one. The role of alveoli, uh, how this alveoli is playing a role. So alveoli is present in the lungs. So let us know how the alveoli plays role in the exchange of gases. So here we can see that the factors are affecting in the function of alveoli, that is the partial pressure gradient. So we will see here whether carbon dioxide and oxygen moves across from region of higher concentration to lower concentration. So as a result, the exchange of gases takes place from alveoli to the blood. Okay, so this is the alveoli, and from this region to the next, we already discussed in the previous slide, from alveoli region to the next blood region, how the exchange of gases were taking place. Okay, blood. So we already discussed in the exchange of gases how the partial pressure of oxygen and partial pressure of carbon dioxide ranges, okay, in alveoli, so which we breathed in. Okay, which we breathe in, so that the air is present. Okay, whatever we are breathing in, that the air is present, so that is so that partial pressure of oxygen will be 104 millimeter of Hg. We already discussed in the previous slide. So partial pressure of carbon dioxide will be 40 mm Hg. Now what is the partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the blood? So this concept we already discussed, how much it is. So these blood vessels are very nearer to the alveoli. Okay, and carries the deoxygenated blood to the tissue. What happens here, these blood vessels are very nearer to, these are the blood vessels, and these are very nearer to the alveoli region. That's why these are carrying deoxygenated blood to the tissue. And here the partial pressure of oxygen will be 40 mm Hg, and partial pressure of carbon dioxide will be 45 mm Hg, that is deoxygenated blood. Okay, here the partial pressure gradient is favorable to the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide across the alveoli membrane. Okay, so here the next concept the will move. The second one is thickness of alveoli. Okay, alveoli. So here the thickness of alveolar membrane, this membrane is alveolar membrane, and this membrane is surrounded by one layer of epithelial cells. So here you can see the three layers are going to form. One is the squamous epithelium of alveoli, second one is the endothelium of alveolar, next one is the basement substance. Here also in the picture you can see this is the squamous epithelium of alveolar wall, which is a single celled thick. Okay, so this is how it is formed, and the air is intaken and the carbon dioxide is expelled out. Like this the exchange is taking place. And here the basement membrane, so yellow color part you can see in between these two, so that is basement substance. And endothelium of blood capillary, so this is the endothelium of blood capillary, these are the red blood cells. Okay, and here these are connected with a very nearer blood capillaries are connected with the alveoli. So all the factors in our body are favorable for the diffusion of oxygen from alveoli to tissue, and that of carbon dioxide from tissue to alveoli. Okay, so here this membrane, alveolar membrane, is surrounded by one layer of epithelium, one layer of epithelial cells. There is a one more layer of epithelial cells. This is the epithelial cells you can see here. We already discussed it, that is the alveolar, the epithelial cells, and there is a surrounded by one layer of epithelial cells, and there is a one more layer of epithelial cells, and that which is another epithelial cells are present beyond which the blood vessels were present. Here the blood vessels are present, capillaries are present, and here we can see the blood cells. Okay, where the exchange of the gases were taking place, the blood cells. Okay, And so now let us see how the nature of alveoli membrane favors for the exchange of gases here. Here we can see that there are the three layers, that is the simple, already we have observed that the simple three layers, that is the squamous epithelium and basement membrane and endothelium. So basement membrane will be in between this endothelium and squamous epithelium layer. Okay, so the squamous epithelium is a single cell, you can see here. Okay, the squamous epithelium is a single cell, and along with that there is a quite thin, not thick. After that also, here it is a basement membrane substance, and then there is another one layer, that is endothelium of the capillaries. So endothelium of the capillaries you can see, and here in between this, the gap, you can see there is a basement membrane. Okay, so we are seeing here that alveoli wall are composed of single layer of epithelial cells, and they are very close to the pulmonary capillaries. So here you can see the pulmonary capillaries here, and these are very, alveolar membrane is very nearer to the capillaries, and these epithelial cells of alveolar cavity and this layer of endothelium cell of the capillaries, so close to each other. So here you can see these are very close to each other, the endothelium and epithelial cells of alveolar cavity are very close to each other. So here what happens, the exchange of, there is a large permeability is taking place through which the exchange of the gases were taking place. Okay, so here the gases easily pass from one membrane to another membrane to another membrane. So here the thickness of alveolar membrane will be very less than the millimeter. Okay, so here there is easily to exchange, here there is easily to exchange of gases are taking place from one membrane to the another membrane, and this is how the exchange of gases were taking place in the alveoli to the capillaries. So these are the capillaries, and this is the complete structure of the alveoli. Got that? So this is how, this is all about how the exchange of the gases were taking place, and this is the role of alveoli, how it is favorable for the exchange of gases. So hope so you have all understood this main concept. Thank you.